inequality. But like most SDG, it also correlates with many other SDGs. For example, with SDG 10, reduce inequalities. With SDG 1, no poverty. 8, decent work and economic growth. And as a father to 2 daughters and a wife also, I think for me is SDG 16, peace and justice. So we have a panelist of fantastic speakers. But before we kick off the panel, I just want to just share a few things. A few housekeeping rules. If you could ask everybody on the call to mute their microphones and turn off their cameras so we can spotlight the speakers. You can ask questions in a link that we are sharing. It's a Menti link. When you click the link, let me just share my screen just a minute. When you click the link, you will see this Ask Me Anything screen. Do you see my screen? Yes. So you ask me anything, click ask a question. You can type your question. Your question that you want, click submit. Then you will see the question come up at the main bar and you can click like if you like that question. So the idea is the most upvoted questions we will ask during the moderated Q&A session, right? So the link is shared. With that, I would just like to briefly introduce our wonderful moderator for the day, Dato' Alia. Dato' Alia is Women's Icon Malaysia 2019. Also, she's an advisor to the Executive Board Hospitality, the former CEO and advisor of MAA Medicare Charitable Foundation, and an advisor of TULIPS movement. So without further ado, over to you, Dato'.
Thank you, Farouz, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, Malaysia. It's Labor Day, and I'm sure by now you're used to, having your official meetings and Zoom sessions and Skype sessions, But here we are today. I promise you that for this 1 hour at least, the conversation will not be very meeting-like, but more on a discussion, a healthy discussion that we're going to have. So once again, if you're just joined us, good morning, Malaysia, and good evening, New York. Thank you for joining us today. And this exclusive webinar is actually brought to you by the United Nations Global and supported by TULIPS movement. Now, the United Nations has become the foremost forum to address issues that transcend national boundaries, which cannot be resolved by one single country acting alone. The United Nations has 17 Sustainable Development Goals to transform our world. One of these goals is the SDG, or the Sustainable Development Goal 5, which is gender equality. With me today are 3 eminent panelists. All female, I must tell you, this is done on purpose to discuss some pertinent issues involving empowering women, the boost in productivity at the workplace, equality, and some strategies to help you, those of you who are listening in, to understand and also seek advice on how to achieve these goals, which will be discussed later on with our 3 eminent panelists. So without further ado and delay, I shall read their bio data, which is actually very, very long. All 3 of them have, extensive work done over the years. But if you would go to their respective LinkedIns, I'm sure you can read the entire bio. But since we are trying to keep it short, I will start with the very lovely lady in the black hat this morning. She's Dato' Noripa Kamso, a household name in the banking, Islamic business and finance. She's the former chairman of Bank Kerjasama Rakyat Malaysia and the former advisor of CIMB Islamic. She was with the CIMB group from the early 90s to 2014 and held various key positions. She is the founding CEO of CIMB Principal Islamic Asset Management, and in 2019, she was ranked #1 by Cambridge IFA as the most influential woman in Islamic business and finance, while in 2018, she was awarded the top 50 of the world's most prominent and influential personalities in Islamic finance and economy in Islamica 500, a publisher in Belgium. She was also the co-chair of Islamic Finance Council at the Malaysian-US Chamber of Commerce based in Washington, D.C., and a visiting fellow in Islamic finance at the Oxford Center of Islamic Studies. She has authored 2 books, Investing in Islamic Funds and Credit Decisions Making, a Qualitative Approach. Hello, Dr. Noripa, and thank you for coming on board.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Noripa. Thank you for joining us this morning, and I'm thanking you in advance for all the advice that you're about to give to us later on, yeah? From Malaysia, I know most of you have not traveled anywhere for the past 6 weeks or so, so let's take a flight and go meet and say hello to Aud Kokatrix, who is in New York, and she's the Senior Manager of the United Nations Global Compact, the world's largest voluntary corporate sustainability initiative. Aud joined the UN Global Compact in March 2019 and co-leads the initiative's gender equality portfolio of work, including management of the Women's Empowerment Principles, a joint platform with United Nations Women focused on corporate action to empower women in the workplace, marketplace, and community. Aud is a practicing lawyer who also serves as the legal counsel for the Foundation for the United Global Compact. Prior to that, Aud was the Deputy Director of the Donor Direct Action Fund, a US-based fund strengthening women's rights organizations around the world by increasing access to financial resources, political leaders, and public visibility. Good morning from Malaysia to good night, Aud. It's good evening there. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, everyone, and good evening from here. It's a pleasure and an honor to be a panelist tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Right, I'm sure everyone, we have purchased a return air ticket. So from New York, we're going back to Malaysia to say hello to our very own Raja Azura Raja Mahyuddin, bringing with her over 20 years of experience in the field of human capital, audit, and nation building. She was the former CEO of Penaraju Foundation for 7 years, providing quality education, training, and development programs. She previously served Malaysian Airlines, Khazanah Nasional Berhad, and Arthur Andersen, navigating audit and human capital portfolios. She's currently appointed as an independent, non-executive director of Chemical Company of Malaysia Berhad and as chairman of the board of SIM Tijara Holdings Sdn Berhad. She is a multi-award winner and is a strong advocate in women empowerment and excellence. She inspires women to take on leadership challenges. She is currently my accomplice as the advisor of the TULIPS movement. Welcome, Azura.
Welcome. Thank you, Dato. Happy to be here. Happy to be sharing as well.
Thank you, ladies. And well, we won't waste much time. Let's kickstart with a very, very simple question. And it's very, very interesting. We talk about gender equality. We've heard it so often. In fact, SDG 5 is gender equality. What do you think is gender? What's gender equality when it comes to, we all understand, when a lot of people have this conception, or it might be a misconception, when we say gender equality means women fighting for their rights to be 50-50 with men. How true is that? Or I'll start this one off with you.
Thank you so much, Elia, and thank you, everyone. So yes, that's a very, very good question. As Farouz mentioned already earlier, the UN Global Compact is the largest corporate social responsibility initiative of the world, and was launched 20 years ago by Kofi Annan. And when Kofi Annan started the Global Compact, he explained that he was creating it to bring business and the UN together, to give a human face to the global market. So our goal is to mobilize a global movement of sustainable companies and stakeholders to really create the world we want. And you already all described the SDGs, and you mentioned SDG 5 around gender equality. So really, gender equality is not only about women asking 50% rights, because we have this 2030 agenda. That's our shared blueprint for peace, prosperity, the people, and the planet. And actually, gender equality, SDG 5, has been recognized and presented as a necessary milestone to achieve all other goals, which means that we are not going to reach any other sustainable development goals, such as ending poverty, education for climate action, etc., if we don't reach gender equality. And as the UN Secretary General put it like very rightly, he said, gender equality is a moral duty and an operational necessity. So it's way beyond women asking just 50% rights and complaining and so on and so forth. And when it comes to business, and you know what gender equality means to business, because that's what we want to talk about tonight, right? The business case for gender equality is clear. Women's participation and leadership in business has been proven essential to drive economic and financial performance. In fact, studies shows that companies with high female representation have annual returns that are 2.8 percentage points higher, which is really notable. And beyond, if you want to come to talk about the broader economic case, it is estimated that $28 trillion could be added to global GDP by 2025 through investments in gender equality. So these numbers are just striking, and it's way beyond women asking for 50-50, and it's just like gender equality is just smart thing to do for business.
Okay. Thank you. That's interesting to see that the figures and the amount that's been pumped in or is going to be pumped in is really, really humongous, helping to boost this, helping to boost the agenda, all right. So why then do we still think that we haven't reached the equal status? Azura, you might want to take on that question. Why do you think we haven't reached equal status?
Okay, maybe I will look at it from a different, not really different, from Malaysia perspective. When we talk about gender equality, and when we talk about what the topic today, leadership workforce movement, we are looking at the effort that have been put through for Malaysia. I looked at some details before. You can see that the government have actually started to take on initiatives in 2000. And that is actually meant of public servant. And I think within 14 years, 13 years, we have actually achieved about 36% just for public sectors. But when we look at the totality, it is now about 24%, for which are still struggling to ensure that the participation will be higher at private sector. If you look at about 15.7% in total, which we have started slightly later as well, because like the 30% club all only started around 2015. If you were to look at Malaysia as well, there are some other factors that we have to consider. One is about the culture. We can see when we talk about women, usually we are very reserved. We don't go to the front to really want to take up challenge. That is Malaysian kind of culture as well.
Right.
Religion can be a factor as well. We know that in certain religions, like Islam earlier, it was mentioned that usually men will be the leader. But there are many scholars have then come into play to also talk about it and actually debate about that as well. I can't really go and dwell into the detail because I don't think I qualify to go on that aspect. And the other one is perception itself. Because usually as women, when we talk about leadership, you will always have men in mind. Yeah, men in mind, and then you say, dream on to get to that level. But things have started to change. That is what we have been seeing happening in Malaysia. And this is a journey. And I trust, like what you mentioned about 2030, I really hope that Malaysia will be able to go through the journey and beat the 30%, as what has been said earlier.
Okay. Well, before I continue, can I please ask the attendees to kindly turn off your cameras and also mute your mics? Yes, please help us to do that because there's some interference, and this will allow everyone to hear the panelists even clearer. Thank you. Right. Let's go on to our next question. So we've sort of spoken about the understanding on gender equality. You understood a little bit about what United Nations is, doing and how seriously they are actually taking gender equality and the rest of the SDGs, to the forefront. And then obviously we also asked, or I asked about, why is it that we haven't reached the equal status? And Azura gave from a point of view from a Malaysian perspective on why she felt that the equal status was not reached. And yes, I am on the same page with you. I'm hoping that I don't even want to wait for 2030. I want us to reach way before 2030 because we've got this huge talent pool out there of women. Yeah. Right. So, like going to the next question, Dato' Norifa, this one's going out to you. If we're going through a crisis, as you know now, it's the whole world's going through a crisis. What's the importance of gender equality in the workforce to help boost the productive growth? Yeah, we are actually talking about the crisis now, which is COVID-19. So moving forward, how important is gender equality in the workforce to boost the productivity?
Thank you, Dato. It's really interesting when both the speakers identify that there is really a hidden bias towards women as we progress towards this discussion today. In fact, it's very important when you talk about productivity, we talk about an economic tool for the. So maybe this topic should be called an economic equality instead of gender inequality, or maybe gender mainstreaming. Okay, so the question is about how to have this economic equality in the workforce, boost productivity. I'm going to take it from a more liberal angle. I think what we have forgotten is to collaborate with the men, to share with the men. Women can actually lift the world. There are about 60 million girls that doesn't go to school. If we are able to lift the world, we are lifting the society. And when we talk about society, we're talking about men and women, which will be lifted. And when we talk about lifting the woman, we'll be lifting the family. And when we lift the family units, there are shared goals with the men, shared vision, shared values, shared responsibility, shared hopes, and even shared prosperity. So if you have got a happy woman and happy society and happy men, you will have a happy workplace, and that itself is productivity. So that's from the perspective of individual. But from perspective of an organization, I think it's important for most organizations to explore maternity and also the paternity leave, so that productivity can be post-crisis. We can take the example of Bill Gates. He will take the initiative to send his two girls to school every morning and then pass back his house and go to his Google office, while Melinda finishes some of the housework. So what we see here is collaboration to the extent that even in Google, the maternity leave of 5 months is complemented with a 3 months paternity leave. So that will encourage the productivity and make sure the economic equality is also being supported as you collaborate with the men.
Okay, yes, so we understand a little bit better now, maybe from your point of view, where you are looking at, overall happiness, in order to achieve productivity as well. So basically you're saying when they're happy, they are more productive. And, I think one thing that you asked and was hoping that people would explore further was the maternity and paternity leave. Yes, and this is if you're talking about post-COVID. I think there are lots of jokes going out there that there will be an increase in baby boom in 2021 since there has been a lockdown for quite some time. So I would think that maternity and paternity leave would come in handy. Yeah. Right. Let's move on to the next question. Post-COVID again, what are some gender-eccentric challenges that you predict may arise? Yes. Generally, we are talking about the challenges that, in a productive place, in an organization, in large companies, regardless where you are, when you have this group of women and men both, working. And moving forward, you will find that there's a lot of fear out there that everyone's saying about pay cuts, losing jobs, and some women out there are even saying that priority will be given to men. The woman will be the one laid off. What's your take on this, Raja Azura? What's your take on this?
I think there are a few things that we have to look into and understand from the perspective of women when it comes to post-COVID-19. The women majority, the mother and all, they have been in the multitasking beyond norms. That is what I can see when it comes to post-COVID situation, doing more than what they can do. At the same time, in their mind, they have the unknown. What's next will happen to me? Many things come into mind. And the other part, I think, especially for those the single mother and those who may be living independently as well, is the issue of survivability. What will happen after this? And this is something that need to be looked into because it affects the mental health, it affects the stress level of many individuals, especially the women, and also they don't have the clarity of situation. And this is where I think as employers or people out there who are in power or can make decisions need to see how exactly we want to handle this. Knowing the vulnerability that they are facing, I think it is very, very important to see post-COVID how exactly we want to manage the transition of these people. There need to be a frank conversation happening with all the employees, especially we are talking about women as well, and women with emotion. It has to be handled carefully and it has to be handled properly to make sure that they be able to accept it better. They need to be a journey of acceptance by this party, and also to see how exactly a win-win situation can be put into play. Understanding both situation of the employer and the employee. People need to know that there will not be the normal things happening again after COVID-19. So things need to be very clear and see how exactly to manage the transition and what are the plans forward. So many parties need to come together. I think the government, all the employers, and also getting the employee to understand the real situation, because people will still be expecting they're getting their salary, a full salary at the end of the month. It's not going to happen. So the new normal that we are talking about and how is it to manage it, and the company needs to start looking at changing their policies, because some companies said you can only work for me now. No, gig economy is coming, so different things will happen. So these are the things that many people, all the parties need to take action and see how exactly they want to implement things differently moving forward. But frank conversation is important.
Okay, thank you, Aud. I'm sure the impact is even on a greater, much bigger aspect in US. Yes, because you have got over 1 million cases with 63,000 deaths so far. And in fact, New York has, the highest numbers, with 310,000 of these cases actually coming from New York, and 23,000 deaths, if I'm not mistaken, as of yesterday. Out of the 63,000 is actually from New York based. Yeah, so I'm sure the impact compared to Malaysia is going to be larger, or even more substantial. What's your take on this? What's happening there? Share with us a little on how is this going to have an impact with this gender equation, and is this going to shake any figures, numbers, or is it going to be like a fair thing across the board? Have you heard anything?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Thank you, Lee. Of course, no, of course, it's going to shake many things, actually. And the impact on women here in the US and actually around the world is huge. It's already been established, actually, that women have been disproportionately hit by the pandemic. And actually, from many different aspects here in New York, in the US, and Europe, and everywhere. Like, for instance, here the figures are that 70%, I read it again 2 days ago, 70%, around 70% of the frontline health workers risking their lives are women. So just that figure only is like speaks volumes. And when it comes to an employment crisis, I mean, you probably saw the numbers that only in New York we have 3 million people fighting for unemployment, like over the past 4 weeks, which is unprecedented. And women are paying a high price because it's been established that they earn less, they save less, and they are more likely to work in insecure jobs, especially in the States. 60%, I've read, women's employment is in the informal economy here, with very few, with limited access to social protection, if any, and job insecurity. Of course, the gender pay gap in the US exists, and across the border, I've read the latest ILO released by the ILO is that it's stuck at around 16%. And in some countries, it's 35%. And of course, it leaves women more vulnerable to economic downturn. Not to mention that the service industry has been, stricken the most. And over 50% of the workers, there are women, 88% in the G7 countries. So all this is just the world is never going to be the same. I think it's going to be harder for women to find new jobs because most of them lost everything. And it's true that there's this unconscious bias from employers that's a reality. We have to all face it, especially now with all the burden related to childcare, etc. I bet you that many employers are going to choose men over women. I'm not even talking about domestic violence that's increased by 25% around the world due to lockdowns, which is extremely frightening, especially when women here in New York and everywhere don't have access anymore to preventive services and hotlines, etc. So yeah, I hope this answers your question, but I don't think the world will be the same. And I think this is time for us to double down our efforts on gender equality. It's not time to slow down. It has to be a priority right now. And the Secretary General, some elected officials here in the US have already called on companies and everyone to put women at the center of the recovery efforts. And this is going to be crucial.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Dato' Moderator, can I just add to what Ot has just mentioned?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. What has COVID taught us? COVID has taught us not to focus on non-essential. We therefore need to focus on essential. So just to add to what Ot has been mentioning, if we actually look at the stimulus packages, which is split into life and livelihood, the part on life and death is focusing on essential, is focusing on the agriculture. So where I'm coming from is if a woman who lost their job, or if they're a woman who wants to respond to essential, they need to focus into being job creators now instead of job seekers. And as job creators, as you focus into the essential business, the woman might want to focus on two things, which are food security and healthcare security. So as you talk about food security, we should start getting a woman into agriculture, into fishing, into all the essentials, and the same with the health. Just to add and support what Ott has been saying. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that the figure that you gave just now, or 25%, in domestic violence, we've been hearing it, quite a bit here as well. But I honestly didn't realize that the figure was, the percentage was that high. And let's hope this lockdown, is not going to be locked down very much longer for the safety, of all the women out there, especially those who are, under a very heavy fist, I must say, in some households. Right. And yes, Dato' Noripa was also adding on. I agree with you that you need to, look a little bit extra, a little bit out of the box in that sense. And you can't run away from these two focus areas, which is obviously the food and the medical. And women being women, they tend not to look after just themselves, but for the entire family. Yeah. So I see quite a bit of questions, coming into the box. I will soon attend to your questions, but I have a very popular, I should say, very popular question out there that a lot of people are actually talking about for the past few years. This is with regards to the percentage of, 30% of women, requirements on for Malaysia on board. I don't know what the percentage is, with US, but I'm sure Odd will, share with us some details. In Malaysia, we have this, we often hear, about the 30% requirement for women to be on boards. And Dato' Noripa and Raja Azura are both board members. Yes, and recently we have been very sad, as as a woman empowerment person myself, trying to empower women out there, more women on boards. We have received very, very sad and shocking news that many of the women on board, prestigious boards and, intellectual women have been removed from boards. Just in the past couple of weeks or past, 1 month with the new, I won't go into a political spark here, but I would say that it had obviously something to do with the new government. What's your take on this? And how do we go about this? Where do you see us going in the next 5 years? Do you think we will, go and reach that 30%, or are you thinking that, look, we really don't think we can hit that 30%? What's your take on this? Dato' Noripa, you've been a very senior person on board, and you were, the former chairman as well of, a large bank. So probably you can kickstart this one, and put my mind at ease about this 30% thing. I'm very troubled.
Moderator, I wish I have a crystal ball. It's a very tough question, but we all know that 30% women on board has been institutionalized. The foundation is there. In fact, in November and December, I was really, really proud to see that Malaysia has more than 30 chairmanship in the GLC, government-linked companies, and the government-linked investment companies. Yes, very sad. We have moved a few thousand steps backward instead of forward. But I think what we need to probably break, how we can understand this is to break it into two. The previous government, when they actually put women on board of the C-suite, it was, I believe, based on a conscious effort to meet the 30%. But this new government is unconscious about that effort.
Can you repeat what you just said? I'm sorry, Dato' Noripa, we couldn't hear you. Can you just repeat about the new government?
Oh, the new government is not bothered about performance as well as ability to lead. They're more interested in political patronage. But as they started to put their supporters on the board and on the chairmanship, by the way, is a woman. It's not that I think they were not conscious. They were not conscious that it's woman. I think it's more by the way it's woman. So we as women should not really feel like in a space of emotional empathy on this. But I suppose your next question is, what is the solution? I couldn't think of any solution except for getting a woman as a prime minister in this country. You know, because the foundation has been there. We can bring the horse to drink. But if the new government decided not to drink, then we can't force them. I suppose what I can add is highlighting again to the current leadership that the performance is a lot more important now than it was before, because post-COVID, we have got to look into remodeling, reshaping. The whole economic system needs people with integrity. And that integrity, I do not know where it is now, because under 17A, it has got to be implemented in June. I think it has been flushed down the toilet. So I don't have a solution, but I think I would want our leadership to probably read the book by Jack Zenger and I think Joseph Folklore. They are consultants on humanity. They actually rated that women is higher and better than men in 4 categories. They had 11 or 12 categories. So the 4 categories that the women are really good at is 1, leadership skill, 2, resilience, 3, self-driven, and 4, they drive results. And these are the qualities that you actually need when you talk about a resilient economy post the pandemic.
Okay.
Sorry to disappoint you. No answer for you.
No.
I mean, no solution.
Yeah, it's all right. Raja Azura, do you have something to say on this before I move to Odd?
Yeah, I think to say there's a direct solution, I think it's pretty hard to, I agree with that. It's pretty hard to say that we have direct solution, but we cannot stop from being the people who's going to push this agenda forward. One of the few of the things that I can think of, like what Dato mentioned as well, the foundation is already there. But how then do we want this agenda to actually be pushed through? Currently, what is happening? It's pushing. We need to try change it to be pulling, so that people want women to be on board rather than they have to abide by the policy or whatnot. So among things that we can do is actually looking at the diversity of skills required in on the board. For example, I think now many boards have started to look at human capital as an important agenda. So people issue is important. So those with CHRO experience and all, this is an opportunity that maybe we can look at. We have many ladies CHRO who would be able to then maybe be considered jumping into the board as well. Technology is another area that maybe we want to start getting more women to be involved with, because if I were to look at many advertisement or many requests, now human capital, technology has been among the areas that are required. Another thing that I want to start putting through as well is the age factor, because we do see that many women that came on board or the board members are around the category of 50 and above. We need to start having pipeline coming through. We can't just focus on those who are already at senior management level. I think this is where TULIPS is trying to also be promoting. We want to start unleashing talent from younger age, so that we can help build the pipeline to come on board and get more women to become board members. And also maybe trying to see how exactly women can support women. So hashtag Women for Women. Yeah. Okay. How do you want to ensure that we will have more women supporting the agenda? I think that's very important as well. We have now, but now trying, when we want to build a pipeline, it's also trying to help not just the senior management members who are women, but also those at middle management and all start understanding and getting the awareness of this can be actually a profession in future.
Right. Thank you, Raja Azura. Or before can you just give me a very, very quick summary on certain numbers that we're talking about in US? Is there such a thing as a proportion in the board? Like, do you have a certain percentage? Is there a composition of members in US?
Thank you. So actually, I don't have numbers in mind when it comes to boards, but I do have numbers in mind when it comes to CEOs and executive managements.
Right.
And sadly, it's not like we are performing better here than the rest of the world. Quite the opposite. The number of CEOs of Fortune 500 Fortune companies dropped from 2018 to 2019. And it got back up a little bit between 2018 and 2019, only to reach 6.6%. So needless to say that this is ridiculous. And there was even a New York Times article back in 2018, and I'm not lying. The title was, "The top jobs where women are outnumbered by men named John." There were more men named John than female CEOs in the Fortune 500 companies. No joke. So this is just to say that there's a long, long way to go here, too. There is no legal framework, sadly, in the US in terms of any regulations, like or even incentive to push companies to put more women towards an executive management. So we are trying to change that in the UN, pretty much so. So we are working with member states to really raise awareness, get them on board, making the business and economic case for more women on boards. That 30% women on boards equals like usually 6 percentage points more in return. So it's huge. More and more states are on board. We have some, as you know, probably very positive legislation in Europe, especially the Nordic countries. France is performing very well. We, on average, I think we're at 45% of women on board. So, some countries are really like pioneers, which gives me a lot of hope for the future. They need to be like, they need to just like create a movement. We're working on it. And I know you need a short answer, so I'm going to stop here. But just as a very quick closing remarks, we launched an initiative at the Global Compact called Target Gender Equality. And it's really about not only helping companies to set ambitious corporate targets when it comes to women's representation, but it's also about creating an enabling environment, getting government, civil society companies together to remove the barriers.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we have heaps of questions that have come in, but just before I attend to these questions, I think Dato' Noripa, can you please, for the benefit of some of them who have asked, can you tell me the name of the book again that you were mentioning that people should read, the 2 books?
Oh, when you're talking about books, I can give you a whole lot of names.
The two names that you mentioned just now.
Oh, that's by that book is by that's on women leadership. Oh, by Jack. That's Jack Zinger.
Okay.
JACKZENGER.
Right. Amma, I hope the person who asked this, yes, I hope you've got that name.
Dato' Moderator, while we're talking about books, I would encourage to read books that's written by the COO of Facebook. What's her name again? The heading is Lean In. Sheryl Sandberg. Yeah,
Sheryl
Sandberg. When in the book she talks about women work and the will to lead. But there's also an interesting book. Don't be a nice girl. You should actually be an ingenious girl. So there are 2 books on nice girls. Nice girls don't get the corner office, and nice girls just don't get it. So there's 2 books on nice girls.
Okay,
So,
okay. Since we have so many questions, I'm not going to be very nice. I'm so sorry I have to cut you off. Let's go into the first question so that I can come back to you again. Okay, so right, one of the questions here is that how do we solve or handle women who are in power but didn't help, or I think it's but don't help other women? It is kind of a competition between women to win over in a working environment rather than a healthy workplace. Does it resonate with anyone in particular?
Yeah.
cannot respond based on example. I think we need to take the example of quite a number of international women and
Just Dato' Noripa, just before you answer, I will tell you that there are umpteen questions, yeah? So I'm not going to ask the opinion of every one of our panelists so that we can cover more questions. All right, so I hope that's fine with everyone because everyone wants their question answered. So Dato' Noripa, if you want to take this on, how do we solve or handle women who are in power but do not want to help other women?
just to example, I think it's very important to highlight how instead of highlighting why they don't help, I think it's important to highlight how some women help. You might want to refer to Hillary Clinton when she was in the 4th Women in Shanghai in 1995. The words resonates in me until today. She said human rights is women rights. And ever since then, she has started creating the Hilton Foundation to support human rights, which is women rights. And secondly, we need to see the many women ministers and prime ministers internationally. Let's forget a little about the ministers in Malaysia. I have been looking up at Mary Robinson, the former Prime Minister of Ireland, for example. I remember she did mention that I was appointed that role to do jobs differently from men before me, you know. So I think we need to create quite a number of success factors and success example, and that would be able to motivate some of the women who is resisting this.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answers your question. The next question, Raja Azura, you might want to take this. I personally think women from the private sector are more actively involved in equality compared to women in the civil sector. Could it be the restrictions on bureaucracy causing this? Do you agree? Do you beg to differ?
If we were to talk about public sector not actively looking into equality, I beg to differ, I think. Considering the percentage of women holding all the decision-making position is about 36%. There are bureaucracy, but I know that there are many initiatives that have been put through in public sector to ensure that that can happen. In private sector, it is pretty new in terms of not really to say pretty new lah, but we have 30% club, we have lead women and all in place, but that one is pretty later. I think 30% club is 2015, I think, being established in Malaysia. And I know that there are many private sectors who are really preaching and trying to get this happen. Let's try to see how we can support all this initiative together. I think we have to work, we have to have our own movement to make it happen lah. So let's move together and ensure that this can happen proactively.
Okay. Or there's a question for you. How can we help educate families and schools to start teaching their kids to focus on equality? Because personally, the person who asked the question personally believes that these are characters that we all need to build from young. Right? So they're talking about helping to educate families and schools to start teaching their kids to focus on equality, because personally they believe that these characters need to be built from young.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. I'm happy because this is really something that more and more member states organization realize, and at the UN, especially with UNICEF, we are implementing programs, and I'm partnering with UN Women, programs specially dedicated to education of very, very young children about gender equality. We're really trying to create a shift in, the cultural norm, and it has to happen from the younger age, because we are looking at like the future generations have, that like it's in their hands. Basically, we can only reverse so much us now, but I think we're only gonna achieve true progress if we start with kids. And actually, very quickly, when it comes, sadly, to sexual violence and gender-based violence in countries like that are particularly hit, like the Congo, I was working on it in my previous job. This is one of the top priorities of the UN and civil society. It's to educate young boys on gender equality, respecting women, etc. And there are already like great results. It's a very tangible example. So yes, I agree with you. Education is key.
Right. Dr. Noripa, a question. If there's one key advice, what would it be in achieving equitable empowerment, regardless of gender, but more on merit? If there is one key advice, what would your advice be to all of the listeners out there this morning in achieving equitable empowerment, regardless of gender, but more on merit?
Get a mentor, and make sure the mentor is a man.
Okay, that's
many men.
that's a very, very, very good answer, which I've heard someone say, along those same lines. So yes, so to the person asked a question out there, yes, please get yourself a mentor, and please get a man as your mentor, yeah, right? And now that the normal will mostly be working from home, how would this improve equal opportunities, diversity, and inclusion? Or that's a question for you. Now that the normal will mostly be working from home, how would this improve equal opportunities, diversity, and inclusion?
Well, that's a good question. I think that we mostly need to make sure that it doesn't it doesn't affect diversity and inclusion before like making sure that it improves it. Because as I was saying before, like the impact of COVID-19 is certainly to exacerbate inequalities, whether it's gender or it's when it relates to religion, race, etc. So I think we just need to make sure that all the actors of society work together, that we all raise awareness on the risk of the pandemic, and that we have to take into account diversity and inclusion in our new reality. More specifically, when it comes to businesses, we at the UN Global Compact encourage businesses to adopt the women's empowerment principles, and one of the aspects of the principles is, of course, to encourage diversity, right, gender and beyond. And yes, it's one instrument, but I think like awareness and dialogue is key. We really need to make sure we don't step back when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And I think this crisis is also a rare chance to rewrite the narrative, shift the norm, and just build back better and better gender inclusive and inclusive in general, stronger and better.
Okay, thank you very much. Or is there a specific numbers or in your woman empowerment principles? How many are there that it's recently been drawn up? I believe in by your side.
So the Women's Empowerment Principle, it's our initiative with UN Women. It's a set of 7 principles, right, that are in international human rights standards, and we launched the principles 10 years ago. Okay. And from 39 signatories, then we have over almost 3,000 CEOs who signed a statement of support to the principles. So it's there's really a global movement that's
fantastic.
On the way.
Fantastic. Right. To all those listening in, I thank you very much. But please hold on, because my friends from the UNGC will actually be requesting you to do a poll, which we will share, some results. It's only 5 questions, and it's very, very quick. And you might, be surprised at the answers that we are going to share with you on a much later note. But having said that, before I sign off, I'd like to thank the panelists this morning, and of course to all, it's night in New York. If there's a few things that that we can take away from today's messages and advice and sharing, I think I liked the woman helping woman, obviously, woman for woman, woman helping woman. And I think one of the key things that everyone was chatting away in the box was to a reminder that not to focus on the women who are not helping the woman, but to focus on the women who are actually helping on women, because there are many, many women out there. Even the TULIPS woman is, also helping. Lots of women out there. So if you find that there are women who are not helping you, go towards the women who are helping you, because there's just too many of us out there who are more than happy to help you. And I think the other thing was, for those of you who need mentors, look where the focus is and choose a right mentor, regardless to me, whether it's a man or a woman in particular. And as we move forward and we go
moderator,
yes,
make sure you don't look for mentor that just go for beautiful faces, yeah? Make sure the mentor respect your brain, your fiduciary duty, your authentic power, where you build soul and you touch on life.
Okay, so yes, so please make sure that when you words of wisdom from the wise, do not get mentors based on looks. Okay, so maybe you might want to do some simple test or something to ensure that that's the right mentor for you.
Those are mentors for air stewardess.
Okay, so point noted and taken. Okay, I'm sure Datuk was just kidding this morning. As usual. So yeah, so these are the few things. And Faros, if you are around, before I sign off, and I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to hand this session back to Faros, the ED of UNGC Malaysia. Faros, all yours.
Thank you, Dato. Thank you, fellow panelists, for such a wonderful webinar with some very, very interesting questions with great insights. So for the participants, if you could just bear with us for another few minutes, we'd just like to run a live poll to get your insights to better prepare us for future programs as well. So we have just posted a link to our online live poll. If you see the chat box, there is a Menti link that Afif have just posted. If you can kindly click on the link, it will take you to a set of questions. Now, just click the answers that best suit you and click submit. We have a series of five to six questions. Will take less than 5 minutes, I promise. So can we just go to the first question? Yeah? Just click the most appropriate response that you want. And you will see the live change of this submission as well on the shared screen. So let's give another 10 seconds for any last minute submissions. Okay, let's move to the next question, please. Last 5 seconds. Thank you. Next question. Last 5 seconds. Thank you. Next question, please.
The panelists and moderators also answering.
Please.
Yes,
Most
yes.
welcome.
Yes, yes, I've been answering.
Oh, I was not answering.
It's okay, you still got one more to go.
Why do I?
Enhancing paternity role. That's very interesting.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to say earlier that, and I forgot, that we definitely encourage companies to find flexible work arrangements for parents and encourage paid parental leave, paid sick leave, and emergency leaves as well. And there's a long way to go in the US.
And the more reason now post-COVID, because
Yeah.
brick and mortar business is out, so it's all working at home. We need to really enhance the paternity.
Exactly. And women are doing 3 times more unpaid and domestic work than men. So it also, I mean, most of it falls on women's shoulder.
Statistically, if we actually calculate the total unpaid woman that washes plates at home, it is the same amount of 1 year of GDP of China.
Oh God.
Wow.
I didn't know this one.
4.5 hours a day of housework times 2 million of population, 2 billion of women population, and then you multiply by probably $5 per hour. That's the GDP of China.
Wow. Sobering statistics. Thank you, Dato', for sharing that.
You need to enhance the paternity to reduce that 4.5 hours per day to probably just 2 hours. Yeah, it's unpaid job.
So we'll go to the next question as well. This is the second last question after we're done.
They're all important. Can we choose all of them?
That's why we asked most important, so we can have a few things to focus on.
I cannot click. I'm like,
Oh, don't worry. When you click, it will come a second later. It will just pop up.
I'm
Okay,
definitely not a millennial.
The last 5 seconds for this one before we go to the last question. Okay, can we go to the last question, please?
Oh,
Interesting.
Yes, I would have gone for women are promoted less.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's exactly the topic of Sheryl Sanders' book. I mean, one of the main topics you were referring to the Lean In book, Noipa earlier. It's exactly
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
If I can quickly quote an example on fear of asking for more pay or women are promoted less. Odd. I was in Edinburgh in November for United Nations Roundtable under the United Nations Development UNDP. In that roundtable, we have everybody around the world. So I was sitting at the head of the table, one end, but there were like many women who doesn't sit around the table. They were all sitting outside. And I keep on saying, please sit on, around the table. And they were like, oh, no, it's okay. We'll sit at the back. That is actually not the fault of the man. That is the fault of the woman, because you fear of sitting around the table with a man. You choose to sit at the back.
I agree, but it's beyond. It's the fault of the society, because we are taught, like from a very young age, that we should apologize all the time and be discreet, and we shouldn't, like, if you ask for a promotion when you're a woman, you're aggressive. I mean, it's just, and so on and so forth. It's a cultural matter, and it's true in the UN too.
And that is what Sheryl Sanders has been telling the woman: visibility and the ability to bring yourself forward, but with respect and with brain.
Exactly. And there's another book, very quickly, that's wonderful and fascinating to read. It's called Invisible Women by Caroline Criez. I cannot pronounce her name, but for those of you who are interested, I'm happy to share the reference later. And it's exactly about that. It's about like gender stereotypes and cultural bias, etc. And it's very illuminating.
Thank you so much, panelists, for those insights. With that, we've come to the end of our poll. On behalf of Global Compact Malaysia and TULIPS, I would like to thank all the participants, our fellow panelists, and especially the TULIPS who have participated in this session. And we also encourage everyone here to look at our women empowerment principles and see how you can adopt this in your organizations. And we remain at your disposal if you need more information and more insights into how we can do this. So again, please join me for a virtual applause. Sorry, we only can do virtual applause to all our panelists. Before we go, this is an opportunity for you all to come on camera because we would like to take a group photo. We'll try we'll see whether Teams allows the Zoom like group photo. But it's okay. Everyone, let's just turn on your cameras. Let's see how that goes, and then we'll take a snap, and then we'll call it a day, and we can enjoy the rest of our Labor Day.
Yes, please.
Sharwin, can you guide Sharwin, Afif, can you walk us through the group photo?
Need to see your face, Dato' Noripa. They will send you a picture.
Okay. Can all of you turn on your cameras, Faris? Can you please turn on your camera?
Yeah. Is this possible? Yeah, we can get the ones at the bottom, right?
Can everyone turn on your cameras now, please?
Teams only allow maximum 4 pictures. Actually.
I see. Unfortunately, Teams doesn't allow the group like Zoom. So we apologize for that. So thank you very much. This webinar is recorded. We will share the links to everyone. So you'll also get to double check the name of the books and the resources that were shared. And we also welcome you to our future webinars, and we'll keep everybody in the loop. With that, thank you very much. Again, thank you to our fellow panelists and Dato' Moderator. Any last words, Professor?
I'm good, thank you. And have a good day. And it's time for you to go to bed and back to the kids. So
if the kids sleep, I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Happy Labor Day.
Bye, everyone.
We're blessed that we are alive.
Yes. Bye-bye. Bye, Faros. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.